Afghanistan has been overrun by the Taliban in what is perhaps the worst governmental military administration mistake since at least Saigon in 1975 when the war in Vietnam was over. And we also look at Haiti, which unfortunately has been shaken by a actually bigger earthquake than the one in 2010. I'm Matt Odegaard. Welcome to Church Public. Well, again, welcome back to Church Public. On this show, I try and give you news of the day, current events of the day, theological topics, philosophical topics that combine with faith. And what does our faith have to do with it? And what are we supposed to do with our faith as we figure these things out? And today we want to look at Afghanistan. That seems to be the biggest piece in the news because it is really, really important. What is going on there makes a big difference, not only in that place, but in the world. And it speaks to both freedom in general. It speaks to Christianity and two different theological worldviews, and we're going to look at that in a moment as we look into some of the details of what is going on there. And as always, if you have missed some of the previous episodes, you can grab those at churchpublic.com and all of the podcast platforms. You can also check me out at all of the social media platforms. At Church Public is the place to go there. If you are not watching, if you're just listening, thank you so much. This is another one of those episodes where I'm going to show some clips, I'm going to show some pictures. It will make more sense if you are watching. However, you will be just fine if you are listening on audio as well. So I do thank you for your support. Feel free to share and give some likes, give some reviews. I appreciate it, and it helps me get the word out because, again, my goal is to equip you to follow Jesus and enter into the public square so that you can make sense of this world and not be of it, but live in it, as Jesus has told us. So let's get to Afghanistan. There is a lot going on in this region right now, and you probably have heard, but if you haven't, the Taliban have taken over Afghanistan. They have basically full control of the country now. It was a issue that Biden did not want to be in this, what they call forever war in the Middle East, specifically Afghanistan. So he pulled the around 3,000 or 3,500 troops from there, and very quickly it just absolutely collapsed. The Taliban took over. The local government officials either left town or are in hiding. It has been a disaster. Some of the military weapons and vehicles and things from America or even left there that are now and have been taken over by the Taliban. It is just an absolute disaster. If you're watching, this picture right here is of the Taliban leaders in the presidential palace, because as I mentioned, the president had left the country, fled for his life, and so they took over. This is something that many of the officials said was going to be a problem quite immediately if America left the region. However, Biden gave the order anyway, and they left. It was immediate almost. I mean, within hours, days, if not hours, that this all took place. They came across and took some of the major cities, and then I believe Sunday night took Kabul, the main city. We're going to look at some more pictures and some things there too. The New York Times had declared that Afghanistan government had collapsed. Here is the article again. If you're not watching, a couple articles here. President Ghani had fled as insurgents had entered the capital. There's a couple other articles there, but we don't need to get into those right now. I just want to give you a feel for what is going on, because it is just the amount of disaster. Unless you're watching these reports, it's hard to appreciate. It's hard to understand, because there are people that are fearing for their lives, fleeing for their lives. On some accounts, it is around 100,000, at least high 80s, 90s, thousand people that have been in some way connected to this government that America has been helping and sustaining and giving peace to the region. All of those people are fleeing for their lives now, and they're all trying to get out, and it is not going well. Here is a picture. If you're not seeing this, again, this is a picture of people climbing up, that gangway that you go across to get onto the plane. They're on the outside of it on this crazy ladder thing, just, I mean, in hordes, just trying to climb in and trying to get on a plane. And that was the view of all of the planes that were going on. And it really is sad. I'm just going to play this as we talk. And this is an Air Force plane, one of their big planes, and there are people climbing on the front of it. There are people climbing on the side of it while it is literally taking off. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible, terrible video, and this is the state of what is going on. And people cannot get out of the country, cannot get out of the area fast enough because they literally fear for their lives, because what the Taliban has been doing is killing everybody. I was watching, I'm not going to play it for anonymity and things, but there were some pastors that were reaching out, and we'll talk about the evangelical, the Christianity connections to this in a moment. But there were some pastors that are in country that are posting about this. Again, I'm not going to play any of those for anonymity and safety, but they were posting that they are anybody who has a phone that has Western contacts on it, contacts of Western people, and that's, England, America, Canada, Australia, etc. Those people are just being killed immediately. They are coming for any Christians. If they find out that you're a Christian, they're just being killed immediately. Like there is no. And worse. I'm just going to leave it at that. They're being killed and worse. It is a really, really, really bad situation for anybody who is left in the country. The U.S. Embassy has fallen in Kabul, and I do want to play. I need to play Biden saying that this would never happen, because the security officials said, if you leave Afghanistan, this is what is going to happen, and Biden did not believe that to be the case. So we're just going to watch that right quick.
Takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well equipped as any army in the world, and an Air Force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Can you please clarify what they have told you about whether that will happen or not?
That is not true. They did not reach that conclusion.
So that was just a little more than a month ago that he was asked, if you do this action and remove the troops from Afghanistan, experts and his own White House officials were saying that the Taliban would overrun the country. They said in a matter of months. It has now been, basically a matter of days, if not hours, where this has absolutely taken place. What do I have? A picture of the embassy. This is a picture of the embassy that has been overrun, and the American flag was taken down in this picture. If you didn't hear all of the questions of Biden, they just asked, is the country of Afghanistan in danger of being overrun? And his answer was that there are 300,000 trained troops, local troops. That's not the American troops that were there, the local troops that will be able to hold back the, as Biden said, 70,000 or so forces of the Taliban. And unfortunately, what happened is, I believe, from all the reports that we can tell, the local troops just didn't want to die. So they gave up and gave in and ran away. And there were also some things that were said about some of the air support that America was giving previously that was a crucial part of the defense strategy. Then as soon as those American air support troops and vehicles and planes were gone, then that piece of it was gone, and they couldn't sustain things. Again, those are pieces that we're still figuring out, and that news is still coming out. But the reality is, clearly, as seen by this, the New York Times articles that I showed you earlier, any of the other news that you've seen, it is overrun. The country is now controlled by the Taliban. I saw a notice that was put out by them. I didn't pull that up, but that they are going to take over these cities to help and ensure the safety of the citizens. That's the goal of the Taliban. And unfortunately, that's clearly not true. That is a lie. They are there to rule, and they are there to take over. Afghanistan has been a country for at least like 2,000 years. I'm saying 2,000 years. It is one of the most hostile environments because it is just a country of warring tribes, and has been, again, for 2,000, really even more years than that. And these tribes just continue to fight each other and kill each other, and they have done that for, again, millennia, like thousands of years. This has been a thing where, even just rewinding a little bit to the Cold War, to the 70s, 80s or so, Russia, which was formerly USSR, tried to take over parts of Afghanistan so that Afghanistan wouldn't be used by other countries to invade them, and they couldn't do it, and they were just getting literally killed. Just so many were getting killed in Russia, in Afghanistan. Russians were being killed there because it is just an uncontrollable land with all. It's a hilly country. It's full of caves. If you don't remember, the reason we're in Afghanistan, and I want to talk about this, the reason that we're in Afghanistan in the very first place was because after 2001 and the Twin Towers and the other terrorist activities and invasion and attacks that happened in America, we went over there because that's where Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden were, and the goal was to eliminate the terrorist threat. And that's really important. It's a really important point to note that the goal, I mean, there are people that are saying this was a forever war and we should have got out of Afghanistan earlier. That may be true. And I'm not even going to argue one way or another on that today. The thing that we really need to talk about and think about is one of the main reasons we initially went there after 2001, 9/11, 2001, was to secure this terrorist threat. And that's really important because in these hills, in these caves, it's really easy to hide and it's really hard to find. And it was really hard to eradicate this terrorist threat. And tens of thousands of troops over this 20-year period have been involved in securing that. And we literally lost that entire security in a matter of hours or days, if you want to be generous. And that is really a big problem. It's really a big problem for the region. It's really a big problem for us even here, because again, that was then and now will be again a staging area for terrorist cells that hate America. They hate America. There's this idea that if you just, it's the same thing that we've been talking about in all the other areas. It's the same thing that we've been hearing, that if you just remove these systems of government that oppress people, then people on their own, because they're nice and wonderful people, will just live in rainbows and harmony. The problem is when you're dealing with people that are just evil and that just want to murder everybody who doesn't believe or think or feel like them, removing the safeguards that keep everybody else safe does not make unicorns and rainbows. It doesn't make utopia. It doesn't make paradise. It doesn't make heaven on earth. In fact, it makes the opposite. It makes hell on earth. And that is what we are seeing. I want to show you this clip. I think this is an important clip from, I'm going to pull this up from CNN. This is a clip from a CNN reporter there in Kabul. Let me play this for you.
They seem friendly at the same time. It's utterly bizarre.
Now, if you couldn't hear that, I know it went by really fast. I tried to boost the audio, but I couldn't. But at any rate, this reporter says that they are chanting death to America, but at the same time, they seem friendly. If that seems like an oxymoron, it's because it actually is. It's the same thing that we saw from this reporting establishment earlier this year, that they would say, this is a fiery but mostly peaceful protest. If you missed that, that was during some of the riots this last year. Buildings literally on fire behind them, and yet it's mostly peaceful. They're chanting death to America, but they're basically friendly. That is a ludicrous, crazy, like actually insane thought. They're chanting death to America, but they're friendly. Those things don't exist together. And here, if you're not watching, I've shown you this picture. This is the reporter from one day to the next, where they just look like a normal reporter, fine, you know, wearing some kind of scarf, blah, 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 whatever. Next day, full on hijab, full black outfit, like no skin covered. And actually, I didn't show you the full clip, but actually she kind of follows them around. And at one point they say, no, you're a woman, so you can't report on this. I'm not making this up. Like that's actually what happened in the clip. Later, I just cut it for time. This is the reality, and I've been informed on some of these reports that Schools, again, there have been governments in Afghanistan over the past 20 years that have allowed women to govern, allowed women to go to school, allowed women to go outside without head coverings. All of that is done. It's over. It's done. I had reports on Friday, even before Kabul went down, that women showed up to go to school, and the schools said, no, we're sorry, you can't go to school here anymore because you're a woman. There were reports, again, from some of these pastors that Taliban was going door to door and saying, give us your unmarried women because we're going to marry them. This is a terrible, atrocious thing that is happening. And we need to not underestimate what is happening here, and that this was the base. Again, this was the base that happened in 2001 where they launched terror attacks, and this is their goal. When they say death to America, they mean death to America. It's not a euphemism. It's not a funny catchphrase. They literally mean death to America. And that gets us to this idea that this is theological. That's the issue. The issue here is that this is a theological thing. And I mean that in terms of, in our faith, we serve this God that is a good God and that loves you and wants you to be with God forever. And that's through Jesus Christ. Their faith through the Quran is that if you are not a member of the Muslim faith, and even specifically this type of, I believe it's Sunni Muslim faith, there's Sunnis, there's Shiites. I'm not going to get into that whole thing right now, but I believe Taliban are Sunni. And I apologize, I have that backwards, but I'm pretty sure that if you are not a member of this particular side of this particular faith, then you are an infidel. And according to the Quran, I'm holding my Bible here if you can't see, but if you had the Quran, I have one on my shelf, but I didn't grab it. It says that if you are an infidel, you must be killed. They believe that those in America who are infidels must be killed. I mean, this is a theological pursuit. This is a pursuit for them to find salvation by following the guidelines of their God. It's not just, I mean, it is people who want power, yes, but they want power because they are doing a theological act. They are following their God to the end result, which is killing those that do not follow their God. This is a very heartfelt, and I mean that in the way of, with all their hearts, they believe this, so they will act on it with all of their hearts. As we say, you want to love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, they feel the same way, but in wanting to kill those that don't believe. This is how serious this is, which is why it is such a problem for women, for children, for anybody Western, but especially Christians, for Christians in this area, of which there are quite a few, because there have been some mostly underground Christians who, though it's been, again, a little bit more free in the past few years or decade, because the American government has been creating some freedom there. That freedom is now gone, and anyone who is found, again, there were pictures that I could not pull, that I could not show you, of people being hung on crosses. Now, this is happening now, right now. Anyone who is found that is a Christian, or even suspected to be a Christian, they're being killed now in this place. I don't know how else to say it. It's a holy war that they are waging. And it is freedom. I keep saying over and over again, freedom is not free. And people in this country of America seem to think that if we move these institutions, that everyone will just get along and will be at peace. And that is just not what happens. It is not what happens. And it's very important that we continue to fight for freedom, and we need to fight for truth, and present the gospel. Now, I don't want to be a doomsday prophet. I'm not that. I don't believe God is out of control. I believe this is all in God's plan. It's in God's control. But we, people who follow, believers of God, we also do need to speak about these things, and we need to talk about these things, and if necessary, we need to act on some of this and figure out what we can do, because there are people that are just doing absolutely evil actions, and we cannot let this stand. It is so terrible, and it's very unfortunate that the administration has made short-term decisions ostensibly for political gains and political wins that have caused this much just damage. And people are dying because of this, and it just really it makes me sad. It hurts my heart. We need to pray for them, and we need to do what we can to make awareness of this, and continue to help people understand that there is morality in this world, and morality does make a difference. And when you have the wrong morality, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day, they're like, how can we impose our morality on other people who don't believe the things we do? And that is a good question. And inside, I mean, I can understand how that feels like a really good question. Like, I believe a thing, but I don't want to enforce that on you and make you believe what I believe. And I actually think that's true. I don't want to force you to believe something that you don't believe. I can't actually force you to believe something you don't believe. However, as we run our governments and as we strive for things like freedom, just as our founders, again, going all the way back to the founding of America, the founding of America was based on these principles of Judeo-Christian values, largely in part based on the Ten Commandments, mixed with this Athenian, Greek, Roman democracy, and those things were woven together to create this beautiful ideal of a free nation where you could have rights that are God-given, government protected, to live. And unfortunately, there are a lot of governments around the world that do not believe this. And I can't even really call what's happening in Afghanistan a government at this point. It's not a government. It's just a revolution of people that hate the God of the Bible and anyone that stands for that, and they hate freedom, and they are working for Sharia law, and they are fighting and killing and living for their values and their God. And these two things are at odds, and it's a problem as we profess our faith in God. And again, I don't want to say this is doom and gloom. God is in control. I still believe God is in control, but I still believe he also uses us, and we need to be aware of these things. We need to know about these things. We need to act on these things where appropriate and how we can. But freedom is a really important value, and in whatever way you can, in whatever context you're in, you need to also stand up for freedom. We see these rights being hit left, right, and center in our country, and the government that protects our rights that are God-given. Again, I want to be super clear. I'm not saying the government gives us rights. The government does not give us rights. The government protects the rights that God gives. This is a really important distinction that a lot of people either miss or intentionally misconstrue, that they say that the government grants us certain rights, and they don't. The government is not in charge of our rights. The government does not grant rights. The government protects rights that God gives us. God is the giver of life, the giver of rights, and we need to get those things lined up in the appropriate order. And as I was saying, someone questioned me. They said, are you saying that we can say our way is better? And my answer immediately is yes. Our way is better. Our morality is better. And if you don't believe me, this is the example. Even before all this happened, and I knew any of this was happening, this was several weeks ago, this is exactly the scenario that I gave. If you think our rights are worse, go and live in this country or any of the neighboring countries and try to be free. You cannot. You literally will be killed for beliefs that go against what they believe. And that makes this situation, like the morality of the Bible, is a better morality, because the goal is love. The goal is loving your friends, your neighbors, your enemies. You love people. You don't kill people who disagree with you. That in itself is a much higher value and a much higher goal. And if you think that imposing that is bad, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we're not imposing freedom. We're saying, I want you to be free. I'm not saying you have to believe in God. You don't have to believe in the God of the Bible. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to believe in Jesus. You don't have to follow Jesus. I mean, I care what you do, because I hope that you do, and I hope that you find Jesus, and I hope that you find eternal life through him. But I can't force you to do it, and God won't force you to do it, because it has to be your choice. But we set up this environment where you have that ability to do that, and to worship how you want, and to be free in that. If you look at Afghanistan, the environment there is not free. You cannot worship how you want. And again, I could go around the world in different countries where you are not free to worship how you want. You're not free to live in the way that you want. And unfortunately, we have people in this country who are saying, well, that way is not the best way, and we should remove those values of freedom. And that's the one thing that scares me. Not that God isn't in control, not that, we're all going to descend into this kind of lawlessness and chaos, though there is always the potential of that. That's the thing. The thing that people forget, the thing that people either avoid or don't remember. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I guess I live in history so much and I study history so much that this is constantly on my mind. It's constantly my thoughts that the natural state of the world is what we just saw in Cuba a couple weeks ago, what we're seeing in Afghanistan right now. This is the natural state of the world. This is how the world has functioned for almost all of human history. Go back and read history, go back and read even the beginnings of the Bible, Cain and Abel, on and on. We could talk for hours just about the different warring civilizations that are the natural way the world works. The way America has worked is not natural. It took a lot to get there. It's been a fight to keep that way, and we continue to fight to keep that way because freedom is important and freedom is best for everybody. But unfortunately, humanity often doesn't want freedom. And I do want to just say one more thing before we finish out here, because I said that I would. I will continue to look at the Afghanistan issues, and if it makes sense to come back to that, I'll come back to that in a day or two. But I do want to hit this unfortunate issue that happened in Haiti. It again kind of hurts my heart. It's been sort of a sad day of news, and I apologize for that, but unfortunately, this is the world that we are in. So there was around 7.0 earthquake in Haiti in 2010, and by God's providence, I actually got to go to Haiti right after 2010. I was looking everywhere for a picture of me doing that, and I couldn't find a picture. I'm sure some of my friends that I went with have a picture somewhere, but I just wanted to get this out there. So in 2010, I got to go and I got to help with some cleanup, help with some orphanages. It was a life-changing experience just because it was, the people are so loving and so wonderful, and it was amazing. Actually, if you've seen me waving my arms, I'll see if I can get my arm in here. I'm going to switch cameras. This is ridiculous. Anyway, I've got some tattoos on my arms. I can't even get them on camera. Forget it. So unfortunately, in Haiti, tattoos are a symbol of voodoo. So I had to wear a long sleeve shirt and long pants in Haiti in the summer, which was, 110 and 100% humidity. That was a hot time that I was there. But anyway, I loved it. I loved the people. I fell in love with the culture. It was just truly amazing to be part of it. And unfortunately, the news that we're talking about today is a couple days ago now, there was a 7.2, which is actually bigger. And we don't even know the full damage as of yet. Several thousand people have been found and have been killed. And then tens of thousands are, I believe, unaccounted for at this point. So it is disastrous again. And part of the disaster, you may have heard several weeks ago now that the president was murdered as well. There's just, when we talk about government, and that's an important piece here. When we talk about government and we talk about creating freedoms and protecting freedoms, again, how God creates rights and government protects them, the government is important. And the government is important because it does protect these freedoms and it does protect your rights, and then creates stability and moves people from chaos into order, which is a great goal. You want to have some level of order in society because that is how people, individuals, families, communities survive and thrive in society. When there is chaos, people do not thrive. They do not even survive in some instances. And unfortunately, in Haiti, the government is not great and not similar to Afghanistan, but it just is another illustration that government and good government, because there can be bad, good government is really important. So it is a tragedy that has happened in Haiti, and we have to figure out how we can help. I'll be, again, kind of reviewing what's going on there, and trying to figure out how, if there is any way we can help. But it's just really sad to see this poor country struck by another earthquake in this way, when, I mean, I know it's been 10 years, but they really have still been cleaning up after the last giant earthquake, and this is going to set them back quite a bit. And it's very sad. And it's very sad, again, for me personally, because I was there and I got to see the people, love the people, and fall in love with how wonderful and just wonderful the people are. And it's really a sad thing that we need to pray for. We need to pray for Afghanistan, those that are in danger in Afghanistan, those that are still, again, our country, other countries have said, just shelter in place and wait for people to come and rescue you. And unfortunately, in Afghanistan, I don't know what to say. That's not a great solution. Obviously, you're hiding from this, but we just pray. We just have to pray for them. And then in Haiti, we need to pray for people that can help, and people to go in, locals and other organizations to come in and help with that situation in Haiti. So we continue to pray God's provision over them, because, again, it sounds like all doom and gloom. And if we did not have the hope of Jesus, I don't know what we would do. I don't know what hope we would have. I don't know how we would carry on, but we do have the hope of Jesus, and we rest in that. We rest in the fact that God will and can provide for our needs and for the needs of those that need his help, especially during this time. So we continue to pray for these two countries that are greatly in need of God's help and provision during this time. So, as always, I do hope that God blesses you. And in the midst of all of this craziness, I hope that you continue to keep the faith.